All right, welcome to Hoops Tonight here at The Volume. Happy Saturday, everybody. Hope all of you guys are having a great weekend. I'm coming to you guys again from Vegas for NBA Summer League. Got a jam-packed show for you guys today. We're going to hit the Rockets-Lakers game from last night, talk a little bit about Bronny James' Summer League debut. We're going to talk about Sheppard and how impressive he looked in his first game here in Vegas. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about my interview with Haime, which we recorded yesterday. That's going to be airing on our feeds on Monday. And then the biggest story in the NBA yesterday, Jalen Brunson takes a 9-figure discount in guaranteed money compared to what he could have made if he waited until next summer to sign, something that's going to help the Knicks and something that is kind of complicated as it pertains to the CBA, the relationship between the NBA Players Association as well as the owners. It's a really interesting topic I want to dive into, and certainly is amazing news for Knicks fans as they get set for hopefully a couple years here where they can be consistently in the top tier of contention. So we're going to get to all that stuff today. You guys know the drill. Before we get started, subscribe to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel so you don't miss any more of our videos. Follow me on Twitter at _JasonLT so you guys don't miss show announcements. Don't forget about our podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts under Hoops Tonight. And then keep dropping mailbag questions in those YouTube comments so we can keep hitting them throughout the rest of the summer. And then last but not least, before we get started, I want to talk to you guys about Game Time. Those of you guys who've been listening to the show for the last year know that Game Time has been a consistent sponsor of ours. And Game Time just saved me a lot of money today. So on Thursday, I went to go see Dead & Company at the Sphere. It was literally the coolest thing I have ever seen. Obviously, I'm a Deadhead, so that makes it a little bit, makes me a little biased. But in addition to that, the Sphere itself is just an incredible experience. There's no way to describe it. I'm not even going to try to do it here on the show. It was just the coolest thing I've ever seen. And it added just an entire different layer in that immersive experience to what the show typically brings. And so I have some family out here in Vegas, and my little brother who came with me, he's like, dude, we got to go again. We got to go again on Saturday. And so I was like, I want to go. We got to try to find seats, though. And, like, I'm looking around and trying to find something. And you know, I talk a lot about the zone deals from Game Time where you pick a seat, you pick a section, and then they give you a deal within that section. But they have these things called flash deals where what they do is they'll take seats and they'll just discount them for a short period of time. And if you're in a situation like I'm in where it's day of and you have to get a ticket in short notice, you can get a great deal kind of on the spot. And by far the best price I found for a quality seat with a good view of the screen and the band was on Game Time. They saved me a ton of money today. It was literally an incredible experience, and I highly recommend if you're looking for a show, especially on short notice, get on Game Time and try to capitalize on one of those flash deals that came through super clutch for me today. And now, after watching basketball at Thomas and Mack all day, I'll be going to the Sphere to watch Dead & Company again, which I'm super, super excited about. It would be the perfect cherry on top of an awesome weekend here in Vegas. So, take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets, Major League Baseball tickets, comedian tickets, whatever it is with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code HOOPS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code HOOPS. That's HOOPS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, let's talk some basketball. So I told you guys a little bit about the Sphere. It was incredible. Excited to go back. The Haime interview was super cool. So as you guys know, it's my first opportunity to interview an NBA player. We've interviewed a former NBA player. We interviewed Damian Wilkins, who is the leader of Overtime Elite, but this was our first current active NBA player to interview. We were at the Brotherhood Deli at the Thomas and Mack Arena, so it's kind of like on the concourse is like a restaurant that's there, and Haime had done like a meet and greet and some other stuff there. First thing that stood out to me, he is huge. Like, he's listed at 6'6" with like a 6'10" wingspan, but I would venture to guess that because he was at least a half inch taller than me, and I in shoes am about 6'6", 6'6 and a half. So he's probably the better part of 6'7", 6'7 and a half when he's got shoes on, and he's incredibly built. And so it was funny because we talked a lot about his post game. And I read a stat to him on in the interview about how he was like the third best post player in the entire NBA to have at least 75 reps during the regular season. And it's not hard to figure out. He's just he's just big. He's big and strong, and he's capable of like winning those ground battles. And like, there's, you know how it is with NBA players. It's always different when you see him in person. Like, I've seen Anthony Davis in person now twice. I saw him in person at the USA game on Wednesday, and like, you watch him just swallow up shots around the rim. There was a kind of a chase down block he had. I think it was on Shea. It might have been on Jamal Murray. I can't remember who, but where AD like jumped on right in front of the rim and brought his arms up around both sides of the rim and like slapped the backboard on both sides. It was like cheating. I don't know how anybody gets a shot off over that guy. Like, there's a different level of like appreciation you get for the physical stature of NBA players when you actually see them in person. That was the first thing that stood out to me about Haime, but he's super nice, super informative. We talked a lot about the Team USA select team process. We talked about his first season with the Miami Heat. We got in the weeds about his post game. We had an interesting conversation about jump shooting and the highs and lows of your process of trying to develop as a jump shooter. And so, yeah, like, Summer League is a little weird because it's when I first came here 2 years ago, I was just like, because I didn't come, I was with the Volume at that point, but it wasn't a sponsored trip. I just kind of came as a fan. And I just kind of parked my ass in the seats, and I just took in the games like nonstop. And that was a really fun draft. If you guys remember, that was the Paolo Banchero draft and Jabari Smith. And that was kind of a fun, like, there were just lots of like really high level players playing every single day. But over the last couple of years, obviously with the Volume, there's been more responsibility. So we're not going to get to as much Summer League basketball today. We're just going to talk a little bit about Rockets Lakers, but getting to do that experience was super cool. I'm hoping, it was interesting. I'd never done it before. So as I went in, I was like, am I going to enjoy interviewing NBA players? Is this going to be something I want to do in the long run? And I genuinely enjoyed it. Love talking hoops with him. That video is coming out on Monday. I'm super, super excited to share that with you guys. That's going to be fun. Looking forward to it. Lakers Rockets. First of all, I'm blown away by the Lakers fan base because that place was completely packed for the Laker game, like up into, I shouldn't say completely packed. It was probably like 95% full. Like, there were some rows in the nosebleeds that were open, but the lower bowl was completely packed and the upper bowl was pretty full. And then as soon as that game ended, even to see the first and second overall picks and Zachary Rissache and Alex Sarr go against each other, the arena just emptied out. And like, again, those guys aren't the traditional top picks, right? Like my friend Sam Vecini in his draft guide had both of those guys as tier 3 prospects, which means they have all-star upside, but they're considered more or less like role player prospects, right? And so it'd be unusual for the house to be packed for something like that, but that just goes to show you one thing, the power of Bronny, and then two, which is basically the power of the LeBron James brand and everything associated with his family, and then two, just Laker fans and how they just show up in force to everything. It's obviously, as you guys know, I did a Lakers podcast before I did Hoops Tonight, and so the Laker fan base has been very good to me and has helped me get to where I've been in the industry, and so it was just kind of a cool demonstration of that yesterday. But in the game, the two guys I want to zero in on are Bronny and Reed Sheppard, because Reed Sheppard was like so good, so good yesterday. We're gonna get into that. Bronny, it still feels like his feel for the game is just off right now. Like on defense to start this game, he's guarding Reed Sheppard. As we know, Reed Sheppard is there's different kinds of shooters, right? There's shooters, and then there's like lasers, or like the coach that when I first started coaching high school basketball, Doug DeMora, the coach I coached at, underneath at Catalina Foothills the year after they won the state championship, he used to always tell me there's shooters and there's makers, and there's two very different things, right? A maker is like, you cannot leave this guy open or he's going to hit the shot, whereas a shooter, it's like, maybe he makes them, maybe he doesn't, it's more of a streaky sort of thing. Reed Sheppard is a maker. He is a guy that you cannot leave open. I can't remember the exact number that I pulled when we did our scout on him around the draft, but he shot an absurdly high percentage on unguarded catch-and-shoot jump shots at Kentucky, and Bronny James got that matchup to start the game. And what I thought was interesting was immediately off the top, in the first shift, he lost him twice. And it wasn't like he lost him because he was running through the blender. He lost him in off-ball defense. The first one, Reed was at the top of the key, and he kind of sunk down into the lane and help. And it's like, you're guarding this laser shooter. You got to be attached. Easy swing pass from Cam Whitmore back to Reed Sheppard. Reed Sheppard just pump fakes. Bronny jumps flying out of his shoes out to try to block the three-point shot. Reed takes a simple dribble into the lane. Cam Whitmore cuts along the baseline backdoor, and Reed hits him with the backdoor pass, and he gets the easy reverse layup. And it's like, Your off-ball defensive responsibilities, if you're Bronny there, are fundamentally different because you're guarding a laser. You cannot be digging down into the lane anywhere far enough to where you can't just make a simple drop step move to be right back in the shooter's pocket. Like, you just have to stay attached. Couple possessions later, same exact sort of thing. Reed Sheppard's on the left wing this time. I think it might have been Cam Whitmore again. I can't remember. But one of the Rockets players is dribbling at the top of the key, and Bronny's like digging down at the nail and swiping down at the basketball. Easy swing pass out to the left wing. Wide open catch and shoot three for Reed Sheppard, who of course knocks it down because that's what he does, right? And so like right now it's just, you can tell, even though the tools are there. And again, I'm a big believer. The tools are there for Bronny. His athleticism is real. You saw that on the offensive end, right? Like the downhill slashing ability, his first bucket, driving along that right slot into the lane. There was that transition run out where he like popped up off of two legs, like on the move to have that easy one-handed dunk. Like, he's got the tools, but everything is just so, like, it just feels so raw at this point. Even the jump shot, like, we know he has the touch because we've seen him make really high percentages of his threes in drills, but in games it's just, there's not a fluidity to it. I want to talk about the concept of energy transfer for a second. This is something that I think is really, really important in jump shooting that doesn't get talked about enough. And the general concept of energy transfer is when you're shooting a deep three, for instance, call it like a 25-footer, right? Like, yeah, a good shooter doesn't have trouble getting the ball to the rim or anything, but there is a certain amount of energy that you have to get into the basketball to get that 20-foot shot a real chance to get in with the appropriate amount of arc that it needs to have a high percentage chance to go in. And so that energy transfer process starts at your feet, and it comes up through your knees, up through your hips, through your back, up through your shoulders, up through your wrists on the release, right? And so that is why in your form, you don't want to have wasted movement. In addition to that, you want the ball to flow in a straight line up through to the basket, meaning like you don't want to have the ball swinging around and changing direction a ton in your release, because that disrupts energy transfer. Think of it like this. The less efficient you are with your energy transfer as you come up through your body into the shot, the more you have to snap your wrist at the end to make up for it. The more you have to snap your wrist at the end to make up for it, the more it's hard to replicate that movement in a very like muscle memory type of consistent way. Whereas when you have excellent when you have excellent energy transfer, it's just a very light flip of the wrist. When you watch the best shooters, when you watch Steph, when you watch Clay, it looks effortless because they're getting perfectly efficient energy transfer up from their feet through the top of the basketball. Bronny has like a weird dip that he does where he kind of like gets out of his power line. He brings the ball up like a catapult where he brings it back and then forward. And when you bring it back and then forward, you're basically creating a hitch in the shot. The best shooters, they come up in their shooting pocket. They bring it up along their chest rather than bringing it back this way and then shooting. And so that's why I think we're seeing a lot of Bronny leaving the ball short on the front of the rim, not getting enough arc on the shot, having kind of like an inconsistent looking release. It's because of the fact that right now there's just a lot of wasted movement and wasted energy in his jump shot. All of this comes back to say he's raw. He's got 4 years to figure it out. And like that's gonna be the challenge for him, is figuring out the jump shot form, figuring out some of the reads to make it a higher level, better game plan discipline on the defensive end. There's one angle to this that didn't get broached that I want to get into, though. So last night, those of you guys who are longtime listeners of the show remember Raj Chapala. Raj is a friend of mine who I actually did stay to the Lakers with early on. And him and I would go live after Laker games, and we would go. And I had a dinner last night with a bunch of my friends in the industry, and Raj was there, and we were chatting. And Raj made an interesting point. It was something that I didn't even factor in during the Bronny thing, and this is a legitimate criticism as it pertains to the Bronny signing. Bronny takes up a roster spot. And the truth of the matter is he is more or less a two-way type of prospect. That's not an insult to where he was drafted. That's typical. The majority of second-round guys are kind of like two-way prospect type of dudes. On a two-way contract, he's not taking up a roster spot. He can play 50 NBA games if you want to, even though you're not going to use him like that, but he doesn't take up a roster spot. Then the Lakers would have 2 free roster spots, which would give them some flexibility in the trade market. Say they did want to take they wanted to flip D'Angelo Russell for, a backup center and a 2 somewhere, right? Like, say they wanted to bring back 2 players in a deal. They can't do that right now because of the fact that they don't have the roster spots available, right? So, if they have 1 roster spot available right now. So, in theory, right now, they could trade out 1 player and bring back 2, but they could not trade out 1 player and bring back 3, right? What if they wanted to sign Gary Trent Jr.? If they wanted to sign Gary Trent Jr. and make a trade that brought back 2 players, they would be constricted because they don't have a roster spot. And so there is something to be said about the risk that Rob Pelinka and Jeannie Buss took by signing Bronny James to a legitimate 4-year NBA deal is he is eating up a Lakers roster spot for the next 4 seasons. Now, the counter to that is they can dump salary. So, they could probably send a team a 2nd-round pick to take Cam Reddish on in their payroll for a season, just trade him into empty cap space. The team that takes it on is getting a draft pick out of it as compensation. So the Lakers could create a roster spot if they need it. But there is something to be said about the Lakers did affect their flexibility by banking on Bronny to be an NBA player. And I do genuinely believe that Bronny has that capability, but I think he is years, plural, away. I think he has a lot of ground to make up in the meantime, and there was some risk and lack, kind of affected flexibility by them going that way. Reed Sheppard. We were talking about feel for the game earlier. The feel for the game is there in a massive way with Reed Sheppard. And I thought the perfect way to describe it is that play that I that I talked about at the very beginning of the game where Reed pump faked Bronny out of his shoes and then hit Cam Whitmore on the backdoor cut. That is easy and simple basketball that is made by just understanding what is happening in front of you on the floor. Step 1, Reed had to catch the basketball in position to shoot right away. This is a mistake that I see a lot of young basketball players make where they're spotting up, but they're not they're standing straight, or they're not really in an active athletic position to be able to go right away on the catch, right? What you want to do is you want to be down in your shooting stance with your hands out ready in the shooting pocket. So when the ball comes to you, you can literally on the catch flow directly up into your jump shot. It buys you time. And when you're dealing with NBA level athletes, there's not much time. You don't have all day to load up into your jump shot. This is exactly what we were talking about with Bronny, which is why he's getting some clunky releases and ugly misses, right? Reed Sheppard on that play, he's down in his stance, and immediately on the catch, he just shows the ball because he sees Bronny's out of position. He's making a read. As he's waiting there for the catch, he sees the ball coming at him. He's making a read. Bronny's out of position. This dude's going to close out too hard. Just show him the basketball. Bronny goes flying by. Very simple dribble move into the lane. Once you get into the lane, you immediately canvas the floor and pay attention to what's happening. As Bronny made the move, Cam Whitmore's man stuttered for just a second because he was watching Reed get dribble penetration. Cam made a read, cutting along the back door, and Sheppard hit him with the backdoor cut. That's not a move that takes thousands of reps in the gym to build out some complex skill set. That is just simple feel for the game. There was a play along I can't remember his name, the bald dude for the Lakers, the bald white dude who plays guard. He was guarding Reed Sheppard on the right wing, and it's he comes over a ball screen, and things are kind of congested, and so he doesn't really have anywhere to go. And so he just puts the bald dude in jail, traps him on his backside, kind of just meanders into the elbow, waits for the situation to clear out, sees that there's nothing there, but he sees the bald dude kind of leaning on his left-hand side, and he just does a whip across crossover left to right, gets a ton of separation, and rises into a shot. Again, it's one simple move, one crossover, but he got to that spot by virtue of just patiently letting a play develop. And what makes me so excited about Reed Sheppard's fit with the Rockets is they have tons of that athletic upside with guys like Jabari Smith Jr., with guys like Jalen Green. They have guys like Apron Sengun, who's going to be able to get the defense into rotation. Reed Sheppard is going to catch with an advantage a lot, and he's going to capitalize on it. I get that the fit is funny here because we're talking about two white dudes, but this is what actually makes him similar to Austin Reeves, in my opinion, because Austin Reeves is one of those guys where doesn't really have the athletic upside to like run your offense in super large doses. Austin can run action. So will Reed. Austin can run ball screens with Anthony Davis. Austin can get buckets. Austin's a dude who's had, a bunch of 20-point playoff games in his career, and I'm not trying to sit there and pretend like he doesn't have the ability to do it, but if you put him against an elite perimeter defender with an elite screen defender, he's not going to be the kind of guy that can take you to the promised land. Neither can Reed Sheppard. But in the context of these supremely gifted offensive players like Alperen Sengun, like Jalen Green, Jabari Smith Jr., these guys, like they are going to be able to set him up with advantage opportunities so that he can play kind of in the flow and be a connective piece. My favorite role for Austin Reeves is I want him to be the second best ball handler on the floor. I want him to be playing off of the other guys because then when he runs action, he has a favorable matchup because he's a lesser defender on him. And then when he has opportunities to catch with an advantage, he can take advantage of his feel for the game and his really well-defined skill set, right? That's kind of where Reed Sheppard can fit in with Houston. I love it. He showed some real off-the-dribble pop, too. Like I talked about the lefty cross. He had multiple dribble combination pull-up jump shots. He had that floater, although it was double dribble. He had that floater that he hit on Dalton Connect. He had a super deep three from like 35 feet away. 23 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists on 17 shots, 4 of 6 from 3. Super, super impressive summer league outing for Reed Sheppard. I think that's going to be a really fun fit there in Houston. And again, guys, like this year in Vegas, my itinerary has been super full, so I haven't had a chance to watch a ton of the games. But when I get back into town in Tucson, we're going to cover summer league. We're going to cover a lot of USA basketball. Monday morning, Team USA plays against Australia, and then Wednesday morning they play against Serbia. We'll be covering those games on the feed. So we're going to get back into some of the basketball weeds when I get back to Tucson after this event. You know the beautiful thing about being a sports fan? There's only like 2 days the whole year without a game. 2. With so much happening and so much action, that makes just about every day game day at DraftKings Sportsbook. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. It really couldn't be any easier or any simpler. Baseball, golf, UFC, there's something for every fan of every sport to bet on DraftKings. And I know it's early, but football season will be here before you know it. And the Kansas City Chiefs are currently the favorite to win the Super Bowl on DraftKings at plus 550. And if you're new to DraftKings, you got to check this out. New customers bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code HOOPS. That's HOOPS. That's code HOOPS for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Moving on to the Knicks. So Jalen Brunson takes his extension rather than waiting to become a free agent to sign his deal. Ends up being effectively a 9-figure difference in the amount of guaranteed money that he could have taken. But this is complicated on several levels, so I want to get into some of the details. First of all, he's a small guard. Do any of you guys remember Isaiah Thomas? Remember when he had that year where he averaged like 28, 29 points per game? He received MVP votes. It was an unbelievable year for Isaiah Thomas. If you guys remember, he was tweeting like, back up the Brinks truck, right? Like he was like, I want all the money. But then he got into a playoff series against the Cleveland Cavaliers, and he suffered a hip injury, if you guys remember. And he just didn't look like the same guy. And guess what? He didn't get paid. And it went from him getting the Brinks truck big paycheck to him getting a whole lot of nothing, right? Compared, relatively, he got a tiny fraction of what he would have got had he taken maybe a smaller guaranteed deal sooner in that process, right? He bet on himself. He bet on getting all that money. He ended up getting hurt. Didn't get it, right? Like, that Supermax deal sounds amazing. But what if Jalen Brunson gets hurt this year? What if Jalen Brunson plays in the playoffs while banged up and doesn't look quite like the Jalen Brunson we saw last year, and then suddenly like the Knicks are looking at the situation like, I'm not sure we can offer that lucrative of a deal, right? This is not choosing between two deals standing right in front of him. It's not like he had, the deal that he signed for $150 and then this other deal for $260 right next to each other, and then he like crumpled up the $260 and signed the $150. It's $150 now, or maybe the $260 next summer, right? So it's a lot more complicated than that. It's also a fifth year, so there are opportunities to recoup their earnings. Yazi Goslin is a guy I follow on Twitter, does amazing stuff with the cap, and he did a really nice job breaking down. You guys should follow him on Twitter. Highly recommend. You'll learn a lot. I hope you kind of understand some of the CBA stuff. He did a really nice job breaking down the fact that if Jalen Brunson opts out after his third year, so he just does the first 3 years of the deal and then signs the Supermax, it comes out to about the same as he would have made if he took the $260 guaranteed next year. So like, he can recoup the earnings in the long run if his agent chooses to play hardball at that point, right? Also, not everyone is as money motivated as other people. Like, I understand that it like, I know I am. Like, I would have a hard time turning down that kind of money. But, like, hey, Jalen Brunson's the kind of guy that's like, maybe he's looking at the situation like, you mean to tell me right now I can sign for $150 million guaranteed, a contract that seemed kind of like beyond my comprehension 5 years ago. Like, this is right here. I can sign it right now. Oh, and I get to play with all my buddies. I get to play with Dante DiVincenzo and Josh Hart and Mikal Bridges. I get to play with my buddies. We have a real team that has a real chance to win the title. Let's just, instead of like trying to hold out for something better, let's just take a good situation that's right here in front of us. And I think that's what he tried to jump on. And to me, you know what? Like, I'm never going to hate on a guy for doing that. The other angle is, and this is where it gets a little more complicated, the other angle is the NBA Players Association, right? So anytime a player takes less than the most possible money he can earn, he does the owners a favor, right? And there is this everlasting conflict between the owners and players in the form of their collective bargaining agreement that is essentially a battle for a battle for earnings, right? The players are in this long journey to demonstrate that they are the reason this league makes money and they deserve the most. The owners are on this long journey to say that they are the ones that are the reason why this league earns so much money and they deserve the most. They're jockeying for position all the time, right? And I don't know the exact number right now, but the revenue split's right around like 50-50, right? But in the CBA, the owners put all these restrictions in. They won that battle in a big way because a lot of players are starting to sign for less and less. Now, in the big picture, it might end up working out because at the end of the day, it's going to be 50-50 revenue split anyway. But the players want to be able to earn as much money as they possibly can, and anytime they take a discount, it does a favor to the owners. But once again, that's complicated because of the simple fact that there's no guarantee that the Knicks will offer him that money next summer. If he gets hurt, they probably won't. Jalen Brunson has been fortunate with health the last couple years, up until he broke his hand broke his finger or whatever in that playoff series. I think he just wanted to take the guarantee that was there. Again, that's his prerogative, and I don't like how it's being framed as like Jalen Brunson did the Knicks a huge favor. He did the Knicks a huge favor, but it's more complicated than that. I think he also was just taking advantage of some financial security. To quote my friend Ryan, who's also a producer here at The Volume, he said, "There's never a bad time. It's never a bad idea to turn down $150 million guaranteed," and that's what Jalen Brunson decided to do. More importantly, though, it is a favor to the Knicks because it's way easier for the Knicks to maintain roster control of their core players now. Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, they should be able to retain them all now and retain some flexibility. The second bit of this is like, well, what if they end up in the second apron when this is all said and done? Like, what if they sign Mikal Bridges and they sign Mitchell Robinson next year and they end up in the second apron? Well, the second apron is only bad in the sense of flexibility. As long as you're willing to pay the bill, you can keep your players. It's bad with flexibility, player movement, right? So the question is, can you be in the second apron with this group? If Mikal Bridges signs the same type of extension next year that Jalen Brunson just signed, you will have Brunson, Bridges, Anunoby, Dante DiVincenzo, Josh Hart, and Deuce McBride all locked up for each of the next 3 seasons, right? And if Bridges takes a similar discount to Brunson, you have a better chance to retain Mitchell Robinson, right? Let's say they retain Mitchell Robinson. At that point, you have 2 starting caliber guards, right? Brunson and DiVincenzo. You have a good bench guard in Deuce McBride. You have 3 awesome forwards who could all start. Josh Hart could start. OG Anunoby should start. Mikal Bridges should start, right? And you have a good starting caliber center in Mitchell Robinson, right? So it's kind of like I talked about with the Boston Celtics. They're a second apron team, but they have these 4 core guys in Drew Holiday, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, who are consistently healthy, consistently available, consistently great. So they can afford to lack flexibility because they have such a good starting 5 and 6 players, and counting Al Horford, right? So like, as long as you don't need to make a change, then you're fine. It's like the Lakers. You can't be in the second apron as the Lakers because you desperately need to make some tweaks at the 2 and 3 spot. They've needed to do that for years. So for them, they can't operate in that second apron because if they do, they're handicapping their only ability to address their flaws. This looks like a roster that can be in the second apron. So do the Celtics. As long as you have a roster that makes sense and a rotation that you can work with, then the second apron's not as big of a deal. But no matter what, this deal from Jalen Brunson just gives the Knicks that flexibility, gives them a better chance of retaining all those guys and having a long contention window. Again, as I look at everything, the one thing, I'm not trying to say it's a no-go because maybe Julius Randle comes into camp and it's a super natural fit. Maybe Mikal Bridges slides to the 2 and you play Julius Randle at center sometimes. Like, who knows how this works out? Maybe it all works great, but I have a feeling that he's going to be the odd man out. And then at that point, I think you try to look to flip Julius Randle basically into a little bit of depth as at the guard forward spot and a backup center. Because now at this point, you need a backup center without Isaiah Hartenstein. So we'll see how it all shapes out, but a big day for the Knicks because that just makes it far more likely that they can extend that window. Just if you paint it as Jalen Brunson doing the Knicks a favor, that's true, but let's not forget that there are some complications there. There's some reality to the fact that we've seen small guards make that gamble before and lose, and I'd hate for that to happen to Jalen Brunson. And I would imagine if I was him, I would imagine right now he's kind of resting easy, know that he's secure for the next 4 years, and that he's going to be happy playing basketball in an environment that he loves. All right, guys, that is all I have for today. I'm headed down to the Summer League building. I'm going to be there most of the day. I'm going to the Dead Show tonight, so I'll be there until about 5:30. Come by and say hi. I'll be around just kind of hanging out in the seats some. I'll be down in the press area some. But come say hi if you haven't had a chance to yet. And then I'll be flying home tomorrow morning, and we'll get right back to the grind on Monday. As always, I appreciate you guys, and we'll see you then.